Welcome to The Construction Leading Edge, the podcast for construction business owners and leaders. My name is Todd DeWalt, and my job is to help you grow your leadership skills, grow your business, and grow your income. Today we have an interview with Jim Johnson. He's the president and CEO of GE Johnson Construction Company in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The company was founded in 1967, and this year in 2015, they made the ENR Top 100 Green Building Contractors. So in this interview, we talk about some great stuff, including the importance of transparency in leadership, talking about finding your own leadership style, which I thought was interesting, the speed of trust, and then a lot of common mistakes that construction business owners are making. So without further ado, let's get down to it. Okay, we have Jim Johnson, the CEO of GE Johnson Construction Company out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, on the podcast today. Jim, how are you doing today?
Doing very good, thanks.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast. I know you're a busy guy. One of the few downsides of an up economy is not having enough time. So I appreciate you taking time to be on the podcast.
Happy to do it, Todd. Appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Well, let's just jump into it. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you, as I did some research on your company, I see that culture is really important to your company. So how important is the culture of an organization, and then how does it impact the bottom line? Because that's what a lot of people want to know. How does it impact the bottom line?
I think it's a great question. I would tell you our culture is more important than the bottom line, and we try not to equate the two. The culture is not for sale. When you look at some of our values or our culture, like integrity, there isn't a price on that, and it can't be situational culture. And we believe that if we manage our culture correctly, the bottom line will take care of itself and be there. So we try not to purposely tie the two together.
So how would you describe culture? If somebody's not really familiar with that term, it is kind of a buzzword, but how would you describe the culture of an organization?
It is absolutely a buzzword. People will, in our company, and I think to some degree our industry, we have a tendency to mix and match the words, your company brand as well as your culture. And I think we're no different than most. That brand and culture for us kind of go hand in hand. Who is GE Johnson Construction? Not only from the outside looking in, what's their brand? What do they stand for? But also on the inside, and having those two measure up, and so we're not different inside than we are viewed on the outside as well. That's kind of how we define our culture. And
is culture something that just happens based on the people that you hire and the work you do, or is it something that you can proactively steer?
That's a great question too. You can absolutely help steer it and guide it. However, we have found if potentially it cannot align with somebody's own personal values or personal brand, and that's probably we're not going to be a good fit for that individual. One of our brand values or one of our culture milestones is balance. That is not only a balance in the type of work we do, whether it's healthcare, office buildings, developer work, to keep that balance, but it's also a life personal balance. And that's important to us. We believe our employees value that. And, sometimes we have people that really don't like that balance, and we're probably not a good fit for them. But we're not going to change who we are just to meet that one individual's needs.
So if you had to pick to focus your energies on policies and procedures or on culture, which would you focus on and why?
Our company has decided we don't want to be a compliance department. a compliance department. Now, albeit we have a policy and procedures manual like 98% of the other companies out there, we believe if we reinforce and keep promoting our culture correctly, the policy manual and the compliance will take care of itself. Part of our brand and our culture is accountability. Therefore, when there is a violation of a policy or procedure, we do hold that individual accountable and reinforce our culture of accountability. But it's led from that perspective, not a true human resource compliance perspective, if you follow the difference.
Yeah. And is your company employee owned?
We are employee owned, but we are not an ESOP.
Okay.
We are subchapter S with 68 shareholders.
I interviewed with a company back at the beginning of my career, and he made the statement, there's a few construction companies out there that are employee owned, but I don't think it works for construction companies. How would you respond to that?
I probably fortunate. I am a second generation leader. So a lot of the hard work, entrepreneurial piece was done, by my father. So I was able to take over a little bit more mature culture, mature company, and my leadership style is very collaborative, albeit we're not absent a leader. And I think the shareholder model works very well for my management style in the company, and probably really didn't work quite as well in my dad's when I was a little bit more entrepreneurial, little freer reign. Sometimes there is a mix of personal and corporate expenses that go through there that may not be in the minority shareholders' interest. So I don't know if that was the issues your guys were speaking to, but that's a potential.
Yeah, I actually spent a few years of my career in an employee-owned company.
Yep.
And I think that really colors the culture of the company, because people, more than just a handful of people, have skin in the game. They're employee owners.
Yes.
And it seemed to be is very successful. I think the company is definitely still successful. And I left 12 or 15 years ago, and a lot of those people are still there today.
I will say, all the people take great pride in owning GE Johnson stock, and quite frankly, yes, I am the majority shareholder, and that's a sense of accountability that falls on my shoulders. It's not just Jim Johnson's money that we're playing with; it's other individuals. In my willingness to be transparent in the leadership and the financials, I'm comfortable with that, and I believe it has made us a better company. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned you have a collaborative leadership approach.
Yeah.
Talk more about your philosophy and approach when it comes to leading people.
I think I think leadership is a great topic, and I also believe it's misunderstood or misinterpreted. There's a tremendous amount of educational resources out there, a lot of books, a lot of different styles. I am a believer in you've really got to develop your own. It is, I think it's the transparency issue comes to play, but also it's very difficult to be somebody you're not truly, that isn't really how you're wired. And I was kind of raised with a very strong type A, it was my father in this case, leadership model. And when I was inside of the company, I kind of experienced how that worked and how it didn't work, and how it felt on me. So I kind of set out on a quest to develop my own, inventory my own skill sets, and really develop my own leadership style. During the course of that, I had the humility, I guess, to realize that there's other people that are better at the finances. There are better people that are actually better pre-construction guys than me. And in order to engage them and feel like they were part of the management of the company, you've got to bring them into that table and say, okay, how do we do this? How do we do this better together, and get them signed on in that regard. So my collaborative style was by me admitting I don't have all the answers, and I don't have to have all the answers. I've got to just be able to listen and hear my employees, because most of the times they have the answers, and I've just got to empower that and listen and turn it into leadership. I know that was kind of a roundabout answer, but it's I'm smarter when other people are helping me think, if that makes, if I had to put it in like one sentence. Listening to people and developing solutions, I just believe 3 or 4 people thinking it through is better than one.
Yeah, and you used a term that scares a lot of the old command and control rule with an iron fist, which is transparency. And there's the old Jack Welch approach when he was at GE, which was fire the bottom 10%, the lowest producing, and just hatchet man approach. And I've listened to some interviews recently, and he's a much softer, kinder, gentler Jack Welch than he used to be.
Is that right?
But it's kind of interesting. But
well, Todd, my debate on that is not debate. What was his mission, right? To maximize shareholder value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our company, we don't manage from quarter to quarter. And thankfully, because I think that promotes some decisions that are not best long-term for the company. Yes, and we have the luxury of being privately held, and we're able to manage to a longer horizon. I think while Jack Welch was a very good leader for GE, that leadership style would not work in our company.
Yeah, and I would contend that it probably doesn't work in very many companies long term. It's not a sustainable approach anywhere.
And he has no balance, from what I know, and balance is very important to me.
Yeah. So that brings me back. You made a very interesting statement that you really have to find your own leadership style and find what worked for you.
Yeah.
So is that, there's a lot of young people coming out of school, and they want to be in leadership. And my personal take on it is I'm a little bit leery to take leadership advice from someone who's in their first few months on the job, and they don't have any scars or don't have any mud on their boots, and maybe they've got a blog or they've got a big Twitter following, but that does not a leadership expert make. So if let's say you're talking to some millennials, some folks who are just coming out of college, talk to them a little bit about the long-term vision of being a leader. Is it something that's going to take a while to figure out their style?
Yeah, I think, but I'm 54, so for a long time I was that generation, right? But now not so much. Our approach with the millennials is, from my old perspective, they seem to be very impatient and want everything today. To your point of, I want to be a leader today. Mm-hmm. What we're investing in is more education on this is your career path, and here's how you're going to continue to develop. You've done a very good getting your educational skills. Now we've got to translate those into, workforce development skills and career skills. And showing them through this course where there's different leadership opportunities. Sometimes it's leading just a process, or a certain aspect of a project, or a certain, but dubbing it more leadership. Hey, we need you to take the lead on this. By no means are they, sitting in the Oval Office calling the shots. That seems to work okay. They also think they do it once and they've mastered it. and we struggle with that. Construction, it is really hard to accelerate experience, and we're trying to show that we're investing in the development of those leadership skills. And we talk about it a lot, and we're always kind of revamping that program and that part of our business because it is the future. And I'm not sure we've got the solution just yet.
Yeah, well, I can say 20 years ago when I started my career, I was anxious to get to the next level, and always wanted to get to the next project, get the bigger project, go from project engineer to project manager, and go from managing a $5 million project up to a $15 or $20 million project, and always wanted to get to the next thing. And I realized that mindset was, it kept me unsatisfied. I wasn't content, and I was always frustrated. And really, it was just in the last 5 or 6 years maybe that I figured out, let's just let the game come to me and focus on what's in front of me. And I think it just came with maturity.
There's absolutely a piece of it that it is. I mean, it's just, it's the emotional maturity.
Yeah, and I had to take a lot of bumps too.
Yep.
Once you get a few scars and you get beat up, maybe in my case, I wasn't so anxious to get to the next thing. I was pretty happy just to be successful where I was and focus on the people right in front of me. But one of my problems was I was looking past the customers in front of me and looking past the people I was working with and doing them a disservice. I wasn't leading them the way I could have been because I was so focused on getting to the next thing, which, that I'm probably too old to be a millennial, but I can certainly relate with that desire to get to the next thing. And I think that's a balance. I think the hard driving type A personalities that are task oriented and mission focused, you want to get stuff done, and balancing that drive with being content and balanced, that's the hard part. That's the challenge.
Correct. I think you articulated it much better than I. But yes, I mean that is what we strive to. We're no different than any other contractor. We take on projects that the schedule is challenging, the documentation's not the best, and then it rains or snows for a month, and we still got to get there. You've got to have that drive, but you also need some emotional maturity to manage through those situations. And keep the team intact and motivated to that end as well.
Yeah, you can't burn bridges along the way. That's a common problem I see. There's the project focus, the deliverables, and no matter what, if the client gets in the way or subcontractors get in the way, you just burn everything down to deliver the project. And I've had contractors try to roll over me as the owner's rep to deliver my project. They were so focused on the schedule that they were losing sight of the forest for the trees.
Correct.
Well, what's some advice you would give to someone who wants to develop their leadership skills? Well, let me ask you this first: can someone develop their leadership skills, or is it like your physical height that you're stuck with what you got? Or if you can develop your leadership skills, what's some advice you would give to someone to do that?
Yes, I believe they can be developed. I would listen, and I would, when I was always doing growing up is, there was different people, right, that affected me, whether it was a coach or a teacher or, something in college that, I hate to say politicians, but that I identify with leadership for one unknown reason or another. Somebody stood out, and I kind of said, okay, what's that person have that makes them a good leader? So I tried to listen and develop that list, and I would also, be genuine. What are your strengths? We all want to be something. However, some things, are unachievable. So be honest and be genuine, and you've got to try them out. There's different opportunities, whether it's in a nonprofit or a church group, or there's different places to, they don't all have to be in the workplace, to try your leadership skills, to develop and start to hone them and see what feels natural and what doesn't, what's too forced. Because I believe employees can see through a lot of forced leadership, and it's primarily the old command and control piece, where you can be, and then you just shut off, and you're not going to, and be willing to get some feedback on it. But I would, you've got to try, take some risks and try. But it doesn't all have to be at the workplace.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I also like what you said about being genuine, because in my opinion, leadership is about serving other people.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've run across a few people that they seem to be in leadership just for the sake of being a leader.
Yeah.
They want the perks, or they want the title, they want the power, and people will see through that in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've run into a few people who had to tell people they were the boss, and I've always said, if you have to tell people to follow you, if you have to tell people you're the boss, then you're not leading them. You're a manager maybe, but you're not a leader. So
Correct.
that's good advice. We're going to take a quick break because I have some resources that I want to share with you. So first, let me ask you some questions. Do you want a steady stream of leads for your business, of new projects that are out bidding? Do you want to know about projects that are bidding in your region? Or maybe do you want to look at projects bidding in other regions or other markets that you're considering going into? Do you want this information, but you don't want to pay an arm and a leg every month or pay for expensive software? Then you should really check out bidocean.com. bidocean.com. Right now, their database has over 6 million business opportunities listed. I've used their service personally for several years, was able to land several $1 million worth of new business that I probably would not have been able to get otherwise as a result of using their service, and I really like it. I like their interface. So if you want more leads filtered to what you're looking for, and you want them delivered to your email inbox, then you need to go to bidocean.com. Go to bidocean.com and check that out. Now, have you ever gotten into a contract dispute and wished that you'd taken more pictures or had better documentation of the job's progress? Most projects start out with everyone cooperating, everybody's playing nice around the table, but then sometimes when the proverbial hits the fan, then all the niceties and all the pleasantries go out the window, and you're left with the cold black and white language of the contract, perhaps even dealing with an attorney. See, I took over a project like that once several years ago. It was about 50% complete, but 80 or 90% of the contract time had expired. The project had lots of challenges. There were massive scope changes. The engineers changed things almost on a daily basis. There were government delays that we had nothing to do with, had no control over, and there was even a flood. That's right, a flood. Nearby river flooded the entire work site. See, everyone coming to the project meetings agreed that a contract extension was in order, it was reasonable, yada, 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 but when it landed on the client's attorney's desk, this guy pointed out a clause in the contract that said that any request for schedule extensions must be submitted within 15 days of the event that caused the delay. Unfortunately, the guys running the project before I got there didn't take any documentation. They didn't take any pictures. They didn't submit these requests. They were just going on the verbal conversations that took place in the project meetings. The result? The company had to pay $67,000 in liquidated damages. The bad part of that was it all could have been avoided with a weekly report documenting the project delays. Some pictures, an email, a letter, a report that documented these delays. I strongly recommend, as a result of this experience, I strongly recommend weekly reports with pictures for every project. That's what I do personally for the projects I'm involved with. And a great way to do that is with this slick app that I found that I use. It's called ArcaSnapper. ArcaSnapper. If you want to find out more information about that app and how it can help you, go to constructionleadingedge.com/snap. constructionleadingedge.com/snap. If you are not doing project reports, you should be. And if you want a great way to handle those project reports, take pictures from your phone and have a report almost magically put together without you having to open up Microsoft Word, insert pictures, format pictures, etc. You need to check out ArcaSnapper. constructionleadingedge.com/snap. Now, let's pick back up where we left off. People like to hear about mistakes. They want to know if they're making mistakes. So what are some common mistakes? I won't ask you to talk about your mistakes, but what are some common mistakes that you see construction professionals or construction business owners making when it comes to, let's talk about running their business?
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't even, to some degree, it obviously it changes with size. But I think often people forget this is a business, and there's a lot of complexities, and you're touching a lot of different aspects of other businesses, whether it's legal, accounting, human resources, the compliances with the different regulatory agencies. And sometimes the best suited person for that is not your sister-in-law. And I think a lot of mistakes, I was a good superintendent or I was a good project manager. How much different can it be to run a company? Well, it's tremendously different. And you're managing the business side of it, and as opposed to just the building out a project and surrounding yourself with talent as opposed to relatives. If you want to have a family business, it's going to, be limited by the growth of the other family members. That's fine. Make it conscious and do that. Those are many good businesses that way. But if you want a sustainable and growing organization, you're going to have to be able to keep, attract, and train, talent. And a lot of times that doesn't mean it was the best project engineer or the best. You're looking for different skill sets. People don't plan very strategically in construction businesses. It's the next project, but they haven't sat back and analyzed their business and where it's going to be in 5 years, and what building blocks that they put in place to allow it to grow, address the concerns of today, as well as any management or financial successions that have to happen. They're a lot of work to do them correctly, and be willing to take advice, whether it's from attorneys, accountants, bonding companies. There's a tremendous amount of people out there that will help you. You don't have to know everything. I still don't know everything today. I learn every single day I walk in here. It's an evolving business, and one person can't do it all anymore. It's just too complex, too fast.
Yeah. Do you think that it's by the nature of the business, contractors we like to pull levers, we like to play in the dirt, concrete, steel, lumber. We like to deal with the tangible things. We like to solve physical problems. Do you think that people avoid the strategic planning and the strategic processes with growing a business just because it's messy and they'd just rather go do something else?
Yeah. Yeah, or it depends on what the leadership the management team. A lot of times they assume the CEO's got this vision. And, I'm not going to say anything. I may not be in track with his vision. And sometimes the CEO is insecure, saying, I'm not, I'm not nervous. I'm nervous about telling you guys, I don't know where we're going. So it's just easier not to do it, right? It's hard. We retain outside facilitator just because they're better at pushing us for answers. But it is hard, Todd, and there is some uncomfort in there. People start worrying about their own positions and their own career path, and the president or CEO's voice is usually heavier than others, and so it's a tough dynamic.
Well, let's talk about that situation. I've been in a situation where the owner, the CEO of the company, really lacked vision. And not only could he not communicate the vision, he just lacked vision and just refused to talk about where the company would be, where he wanted the company to go. And ultimately, I left because of just the lack of vision. So what advice would you give to someone who's at maybe they're a senior leader, VP level, manager level leader in an organization, and they don't know what the vision of the company is, or they don't like or agree with or think that the vision that's been expressed is healthy. What advice would you give them on how to deal with that?
I think I think employees want to hear what the company is going to look like in the future. And the future could be a year, it could be 5 years. And if you don't know, part of that's okay. It's kind of how you present it, but they want to know you're engaged and somebody's looking out front. So it doesn't have to be, an 18-page document that says, here's our strategic plan. It could be, this time next year we're going to have a better safety record, where our backlog is going to be, 10 million higher. They just want, I want to rally behind that. And don't overthink it, don't overcomplicate it. But I think employees want to hear that somebody's looking out in front and trying to look around the corner to see what's coming.
Yeah, they want to know somebody's got a hold of the wheel of the ship, and they're at least trying to steer it, or if there's an iceberg coming, they're letting people know. Yeah. So. And I
struggled a long time in our business calling ours strategic, because to me, when I look at it, it's good blocking and tackling business sense with a growth strategy. It doesn't seem strategic. I felt like I should, keep it locked in the corporate safe. No. And I finally got, I got it. This is who we are in 2025, and you don't get too wrapped around the word strategic, thinking you've got to come up with some innovative, creative idea. It's just really, tell me about what the company's going to be doing in a year, 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah, that's good. Don't overthink it. I think my sense is that a lot of people are reluctant to share any kind of vision, so they don't share anything. And just sharing something, even if it's really basic and doesn't seem worthwhile, is better than not sharing anything. Silence. Well, what I found is that in a vacuum of information, people tend to create their own narrative, and it's pretty creative. And you're always better to have some information, put some information out there rather than have a vacuum.
I absolutely agree, and I think then people will really try to watch your decisions, and they may misinterpret where you're going.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about, before we got on the call, we talked a little bit about one of the biggest challenges that faces the entire industry, that maybe because of our lack of forward thinking, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem down the road, and that's the skilled labor shortage.
Yeah.
To somebody who's not really familiar with the situation, they're saying, "Hey, what skilled labor shortage? What?" Talk about that a little bit, and what that could look like in a few years.
Yeah. Boy, Todd, a lot of it varies from different parts of the country. Right. Keep in mind, I'm in Colorado, so I'm west or Midwest. From us, the East Coast has still a pretty good labor supply. It looks like there's younger people still entering the trades, and it is still viewed as a career. You can enjoy a very good career as a plumber, an electrician, an iron worker. Out in Colorado, Kansas, Wyoming, and Montana, the markets that we serve they're predominantly non-union, which is fine. We are non-union as well. But the trades were never viewed as a career. You always did that until you got a job working with a high-tech company. So a lot of years, we never really grew our labor force. We just kind of stole each other's crews, and we never developed the next wave. The average age of a mason in Colorado is 56. Now, masonry is hard work. You can make a tremendous amount of money. However, 20-year-olds are not getting into it. They don't view it as a viable career. And it's going to be pretty hard to build projects without masons. We used to, the industry, relied a lot on Hispanic labor. And I'm not making a political statement, but a lot of the immigration reform, immigration talk, kind of slowed that supply down, supply of labor. And some of our work, some of the mechanical systems, electrical systems, they've gotten very complex. And we did not put the training in place to train those craftspeople to do a lot of the technical work that is required today.
So what are people doing? What are companies and organizations doing?
Yeah, so Colorado, we went through a budget crisis about like every other state, which hit our K through 12 programs. The vast majority of them, one of the first things they took out of their schools, I'm speaking public schools, was to get rid of their shop programs, their VOTEC programs. And we're going back through now and getting those introduced at the high school levels. We're doing a tremendous amount of outreach, not only in career fairs, but also helping schools fund construction as a career. We're in collaboration with the Home Builders Association trying to get those classes and those facilities put back in the public high schools.
So what should somebody be doing? Well, let's ask it this way. If there was something that every construction business owner could do to help, if somebody could if every construction business owner in America spent 1 hour a month doing fill in the blank to help this problem, what do you think that would be?
Go to a high school and talk to kids what a great industry this is. The opportunities. I started in this as a labor because I loved seeing my work environment change every single day. That's what got me excited. That's what, and obviously I worked my way up where I'm about as far removed from that as I can get. But, but I still love this industry. The opportunities are almost unparalleled. You can't have a career in, Google that's the same as what you potentially could have in construction. It's just, there's a lot of opportunity. Go to a high school and speak to the industry as a career, not as just a job. And I think that's what I would ask everybody to do.
That's great. That's great advice. There's a mindset that needs to be changed out there, and it's going to take a lot of people talking about it to fix it. That's great advice. Quick question. Here's a kind of a rapid fire question. What's one book on business or leadership or personal development, or for that matter, anything that you would recommend that everybody that's listening to this check out?
So I'm kind of a smorgasbord. and some of the more academic books I struggle with. They actually give me a headache. Stephen Covey, The Speed of Trust, I just think is fundamental to so many things to do. There's one called The Intangibles of Leadership by Richard Davis that really goes into more some of the intangibles of leadership that I found much more valuable as I got a little bit more into management. Everything I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. I mean, it's an awesome book. You want to talk about simple, and if you follow it, not too bad. Subservient Leadership is another one that's pretty good. And that's probably more books than any one person want. I think that also, Todd, gives you a little bit of insight into my leadership style. But those are the ones that I felt moved the needle for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of focus on leadership tactics and strategy and say this, do this, pull this lever, push this button. But to me, the books or people that I've listened to that have really moved the needle for me are the ones that have changed the way I think, that have kind of opened my eyes and said, leadership's about serving people. Oh, well, that kind of changes everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think, you've got to create an environment where you're still the president or CEO, but if you're doing something wrong, somebody's got to have the courage to come in and say, hey, this is what we're hearing. Is this what you intended? And an open door policy is always, overstated, but I absolutely live by that.
Well, it's the transparency, which is so scary for people.
Yeah.
People that are, and I've tried to live by that, but the temptation is just to close your door, keep it all out there. It's so much cleaner that way. But that distrust seems to develop when there's separation. So the less separation you've got, and the more you're around your people, the more they'll trust you, the less sinister, what did I call them? The conspiracy theories are that develop. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can spend a lot of time chasing those, or you can go the other way, which I kind of elected to go the other way.
Yeah. So you talked about trust. Talk about, what some people would say, well, they gotta prove themselves to me and then I'll trust them.
Yeah. It seems to be the two different models, right? Some people lead with trust. I'm willing to trust you until I get proven wrong. And there's other people that will incrementally release trust to you. That seems to be kind of the two models that people fall in. I think you've got to earn it, and to me, a lot of it is, it's the basic of following through, doing what you say you're going to do, and I assume that of others too. And all of my, I don't differentiate on how I deal with people in that regard either. I mean, so they can come to expect that of me, and I mean,
I've heard that
it is an asset.
I've heard that trust is, I think, the most powerful motivator, and it's a very powerful form of currency.
Yes.
So I know I certainly operate a lot better when I know that I'm working with someone who trusts me, and I don't do well when I'm working with or reporting to someone who doesn't trust me. That just
you spend a tremendous amount of time trying to think or out strategize or outdo them, and where you ought to just be communicating and trusting. And I, by the way, I mean, yes, I've been burned, both personally and financially, by extending too much trust. I believe the rewards I have received from that greatly outweigh those vastly smaller percentage of trust violations.
Sure. If you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice, let's say 20 years ago,
Yeah.
what would you tell Jim?
Oh, great question. Hey, I mean, 20 years ago, I probably thought I knew it all. I think I probably would have invested more in the next generation of leaders. I had a lot of, still do, project managers, project engineers, estimators, and I've got some great ones, but I don't have great leaders. And I think that's the challenge our company has is, developing those leaders, and you need multiples of them. And I don't think we did a good job of that. I don't think I placed a high enough value on that where I do today.
Yeah, that's good advice.
In order to capitalize on some of the opportunities that you have today, you need good leaders. And, we're not as deep in that as I wished we were.
There's two schools of thought when it comes to growing, especially at the leader level. Some go outside the organization, and some have a strict grow from within approach. What's your company's approach to that?
Our preference is to grow within.
Mm-hmm. What's the downside to going outside the organization?
Sometimes the body can reject the organ. There's some very talented people out there, and we've had limited success of bringing them in to our culture and our company and having them succeed. A lot of what made them successful was done at another company, right? So half your company's going to hate that company or not know anything about them, so he didn't do it here, and I feel like I got passed over. So we're very selective when we bring from the outside. We usually try to move them over laterally and then let them grow vertically.
Okay.
And say, you will have a more successful career here if you move over as a project manager, then move into a construction executive. We absolutely understand you're probably ready to be a construction executive at the current company, but come and learn us first.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good advice. I've seen that. I've seen the same thing quite a bit. People come into a culture and they just don't succeed. It's not a technical issue. It's a cultural issue. Yeah. One more question. I want to be a good steward of your time. One more question before I give you an opportunity to tell people where they can connect with you and your company. Okay. If you had an audience, let's imagine you're in a room of 500 construction business owners, and you could give them a couple of pieces of advice that they absolutely need to hear, what would you tell them? Get out now?
Get out now. Yeah, you people are nuts if you have me up here. I think don't forget the love of the industry, and all of us are more successful because everybody says people are their greatest asset or their most valuable resources. Yeah, they are. Treat them like that.
Yeah.
And let's strive to be better. We as an industry can always do better. Push the envelope. You look at construction as a profession. All of the things that we do that people are really unaware of. That I think it's an amazing business. I love that. I have a passion for it. But let's grow that next generation of leaders, craftsmen, so we can keep advancing the industry.
Yeah, good stuff. Jim, where can people find out more about your company and connect with you?
Okay. Thanks again, Todd, for the opportunity. I wasn't exactly sure where this was going to go, but I enjoyed it. My name is Jim Johnson, and I'm the president and CEO of GE Johnson Construction. website is gejohnson.com. We are headquartered in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And my email, which I do not mind, is the initial J, Johnson, at gejohnson.com.
Very good. Well, I'll put the links to your website and put your email address in here, as well as a few other notes from our conversation, and they'll be in a blog post, the show notes for this call. And this was great stuff, Jim. I really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And thanks for being on the podcast.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Todd.
Hope you enjoyed that interview with Jim Johnson. If you want to see the notes from this call, you can go to constructionleadingedge.com/035. This is episode 35. Or if you're listening to this podcast on an iPhone or an iPad, then open up the podcast player, press on the little I for information on this episode, and then all the links will just magically appear. You can just press on the links from right there, and you'll see the show notes for this episode right on your phone or your iPad. You can also find links for BidOcean and ArcaSnapper. That was constructionleadingedge.com/snap for ArcaSnapper, and you can go to bidocean.com if you're looking for leads for your business. If you've got questions, send me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com. I'll give a shout out to Brad McCollum, who's starting up his own construction company, and he sent me an email last week. So I ended up picking up the phone and calling Brad, and we chatted for a little while about what he's got coming up and how I might be able to help him out. So last thing, go join the Construction Leading Edge Nation. You'll get insider information on the stuff I'm working on, and you'll get an email from me periodically as well. That is at constructionleadingedge.com/nation, or you just go to the website. You'll see the big green button that says Join the Construction Leading Edge Nation. That's it. My name is Todd DeWalt. Thanks for listening. See you next time.